Now, I lost about 12 pounds between April and June. Nobody really knows why it happens, but for most of us, we lose more weight, our glucose goes lower, and our ketones go higher than they do with even water fasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm filming this in the car because this is literally the only time I have in the next few days to get a video filmed, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about sardine challenges, or sardine fasting, as some of us call it. Now, the deal with sardines, nobody really knows what the deal is with sardines, but they are magic little fishies. And when I do a sardine fast, I actually do lose more weight, my ketones go higher, and my glucose goes lower than even with water fasting. It is just the weirdest thing. I believe it's probably the omega-3s, but nobody really understands why this happens. If you need a lot of information on sardine fasting, your resource should be Dr. Annette Bosworth. You can find her on Instagram and on YouTube, and she has all kinds of information about sardines and sardine fasting and why it's so amazing for you. Now, I lost about 12 pounds between April and June by incorporating some sardine fasting, and it's been really amazing for me. Day 3 is like euphoric. Once you get to day 3, you wake up that day and you just feel so amazing. And then on day 4 is when the ketones skyrocket. I'll go from about 1.8 ketones on day 3 to maybe 4 or 3.5 on day 4. So it's really amazing to watch those numbers jump like that. And as long as I sardine fast, my ketone numbers continue to go up. It's really amazing. Now, sardines really are like magic little fishies, and they actually are superfoods. You can see here on this infographic, they have so many vitamins and nutrients in them. It's really, they are a superfood for sure. Now, if you're grossed out by sardines, or you think you're grossed out by sardines, and that's where most of us are. Most people think they're grossed out by sardines, but they don't really know because they haven't actually tried them. You just think you know because you think they're going to have a tail on them and a head, and that they're going to have scales like fish, and that you're going to be able to see their insides. Like, people really get grossed out when you talk about eating sardines. And a lot of us, though, remember eating sardines when we were younger. I remember eating with my mom on saltine crackers when I was little, but then that kind of goes away and you stop eating them, and then you're completely grossed out, and some people are actually kind of afraid of the sardines. I can assure you there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, they don't have tails or heads, so even if you get sardines that do have the skin on them, it's not going to gross you out like you think. I mean, it might be a little bit slimy, but it's not going to be gross like you think it would be. Their insides are not there. You're not going to find anything really, really terrible. If you get the ones with the skin and the bones, there's going to be some little crunchy pieces, but it's not terrible. It's not like chewing on a chicken bone. It's just little crunchy pieces in there. Now, I prefer mine without the skin and without the bones. I don't really like them to still look like fish. I just have a hard time with that. If I went to a barbecue and somebody was roasting a pig on an open fire, I honestly don't think I could eat it. It's just who I am. I don't like my food to still look like the animal it was. Call me crazy. I just don't like it. It grosses me out. And if we're ever out to eat somewhere together, or we're ever at a meetup and you start mooing like my cow did, or you start oinking like my bacon did, I probably won't be able to finish my meal. That's just who I am. But I want to assure you that I can get the sardines down, especially if they don't have the skin and the bones. Now, I did for a long time eat the Wild Planet ones with the skin and the bones, but I didn't like them. And it was hard for me, and I would have to cover them in mustard, and then I would basically eat them whole because I just had to figure out how to get them down. But I wanted to eat them because they are so good for you. I wanted the nutrients in the sardines, so I would eat them anyway. And then Courtney Luna told me about the other kind of sardines, the ones that aren't nearly as gross as the ones that I was eating. They don't have the skin, they don't have the bones, and they are much easier to get down. They're not as fishy either, so they really do taste a lot like tuna fish. So a lot of times I'll either make my own mayonnaise, or I'll buy some really good quality avocado oil mayonnaise. I like the Better Body Foods one. They even have one that has a little bit of lime in it that helps kind of mask the fishy taste of the sardines. But if you buy the ones that I'm talking about, the King Oscar ones without the bones and without the skin, they really do taste a lot like tuna fish. They're not incredibly fishy, and they're much easier to kind of mix up with some mayonnaise, or you can put a little bit of mustard on them, or you can sometimes I use lemon pepper on them, and it really does help to get them down. And the way you'll feel if you can get yourself to eat these sardines, you will be really amazed with how amazing you can feel. So I wanted to clear the air so to speak, about the sardines and let you guys know, because there are so many people that will say to me, oh, gross, I don't know how you do that with the heads and the tails on them. They don't have heads and tails. And so I think that's an important note, because a lot of people are afraid. As far as weight loss goes, I know a lot of people do the sardine fast for weight loss. And so, and that's why a lot of people come to carnivore. That's why a lot of people are on a diet, is weight loss, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. So I lose about 1 pound a day on a sardine fast, and usually it stays off, which is pretty awesome. And the first few times I did a sardine fast, I really didn't eat enough. I would eat maybe a couple of cans in a day, which ends up being about 800 calories. So when you buy the sardines, you want to get the ones in olive oil. You don't want to get the ones in water. If you do get the ones in water, you want to make sure to add some fat to it. Like, make sure you add the mayonnaise or add some olive oil, or add some butter or some beef tallow, or I did bacon grease recently, and that wasn't terrible. It kind of covered up the fishy taste. So that was pretty good. So you want to make sure you add about 2 tablespoons of fat for 1 can of sardines. Now, I buy them in the olive oil, which already has about 2 tablespoons of the fat in there. The fat is really important, Dr. Boz says, and you want to be sure you get the fat. If you eat the sardines with 2 tablespoons of fat or the olive oil that they already come in, it ends up being about 400 calories. Your can of sardines ends up being 75-25, so 75% fat, 25% protein, which is a really good place to be if you're on a low-carb diet or on a carnivore diet. You either buy them in water and add some fat, or you can buy them in the olive oil and then drink the olive oil that is left in that can. Now, I usually get them in the olive oil and then dump the olive oil out and add the avocado oil mayonnaise or the bacon grease or my own mayonnaise if I make it, or I'll just eat them and then I'll eat a couple tablespoons of butter afterwards. But you definitely want to be sure that you get that fat, because according to Dr. Boz, it really is important to have the extra fat. I've seen people do it where they're getting them in water and not adding the fat, and I feel like those people don't lose weight as well as when you add the fat to it. A lot of times I'm only eating 800 calories a day when I do sardines, and I don't know if it's just, I think they just keep you so full, satiated, and satisfied all day long. If I eat a can for breakfast and a can for lunch, I usually just don't even want dinner because they keep me so full. But if I ate those same macros and those same calories in steak or some other carnivore food, it would not keep me that full, and I would definitely be able to tell that I'm in a really strong calorie deficit, which is not a good thing. And so I did an experiment to see, because there were a lot of people saying you're only losing weight on a sardine fast because it's so high protein and it doesn't have enough fat, or because you're eating such low calories. So I did another week-long experiment where I ate my macros at 75-25 or thereabouts. I was eating between 1,600 and 1,700 calories a day of sardines with fat. So I was eating 4 cans with either the olive oil or an added fat to them, which made it between 1,600 and 1,700 calories, 75% fat, 25% protein. My ketones skyrocketed, my glucose came down. I lost, I think it was 6 pounds in 7 days. And then I gave myself a week of eating regular carnivore foods again, which, if I'm being honest, I love being a carnivore. Carnivore is the most incredible thing I've ever done for myself. But for some reason, on regular carnivore at like 75-25, I don't lose weight and I don't really get into ketosis, which is interesting. Like very low, like almost doesn't register ketosis. And my glucose tends to stay like in the 90s, just on normal carnivore for me, on just a regular day where I'm not trying to get my ketones up or my glucose down. So I went straight from 7 days of sardine fasting, 75-25, between 1,600 and 1,700 calories, to regular carnivore with the same amount of macros and the same amount of calories. And my glucose came up and my ketones went down. It's the weirdest thing. So then I gave myself a week of just eating normal carnivore foods, and then I added sardines in for breakfast and lunch just to see what would happen, and then ate my normal carnivore dinner. And my ketones came up a little bit and my glucose went down a little bit. So those sardines really are magical, and they can really do some amazing things. Now that all the garbage is out of the way and you know they don't have tails and fins and heads on them, are you willing to try some sardines? Now, you don't have to do a sardine fast. You can just add some sardines in because they're so good for you and because they're a superfood. And I definitely think that everybody should do that. I should also say there's no real limit on how many cans of sardines you can eat. So if you're really hungry and you want to eat 7 or 8 cans of sardines, you can totally do that. Most people can't because they keep you so full. But if you need to eat more, you can absolutely do that. If you're stuck, if you're really stuck, if you're stalled, if you can't lose any weight and you still have weight to lose, I highly suggest a sardine fast or a sardine challenge. You can start with 1 day, see how you feel, and then decide if you want to go 2 or 3 days. But I think you'll really feel amazing, and you'll see that it's a great tool to have in your carnivore toolbox or your low carb toolbox, something you can add in to increase your ketones, lower your glucose a little bit, and maybe drop a couple of pounds if you need to. And it can definitely break a stall and help you continue to lose weight once you go back to regular carnivore. Lots of people incorporate sardine fasting. People have done 15 days, 20 days, 30 days of sardine fasting and been really healthy afterwards. And I've seen it break people's stalls. And that's where I was. Like, I was just feeling really stuck, and regular carnivore just wasn't working for me like it had. I either have to sardine fast or fat fast, like 85% of my calories or 90% of my calories have to come from fat in order for me to typically get my ketones that high and or lose weight on the carnivore diet. That's just, I'm more than 3 years in, almost 3.5 years in. And at this point, because probably I'm so close to my goal, it is harder for me when I do want to drop a couple of pounds. And so it's really interesting that the sardines can do that for me. The sardines can help me get that weight off. So I just wanted to recommend that to people. If you really are looking for something to help get you past a plateau or just boost it, maybe you have like a wedding coming up or something special and you want to drop a few pounds, I highly suggest the sardine fasting. Also for the mental clarity, if you're somebody who suffers with brain fog, it might be a really good idea just to do a couple of days and see how you feel, because they are magic little fishies. Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say today. I hope you guys are having an awesome week, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.